I figured we'd take another day and do this 13.2 part 2. Just talk about the unit circle because it's something that's really important for pre-calc and everything else that you guys are about to go into. It's all based on this unit circle, and the keyword is unit, which means that everything is 1, which means every radius you draw here is 1. It doesn't matter where I put it, the radius is 1. So the equation of this line, which is really kind of null and void, but x squared plus y squared equals 1. Okay, so that would be the equation of this, and then so you see the radius, or r squared, is 1, but that means the radius is 1 too, everything you look at. So if we look at this, break it down, what are the base parts of it? Well, again, when we're talking about a unit circle from 0 to 1, okay, that length is 1. Well, this point then is the point 1 on the x-axis, and then 0 because you didn't go up anywhere. What degree? Well, this is 0 degrees. It's also 0 radians. Okay, well, let's talk about up top here. This one going up. It doesn't go right or left anywhere, so this point up here right there is going to be 0, 1. Again, if you look at that, what angle is that? Well, that if you look at, you always want to look at the angle from the x-axis. So that's going to be our 90-degree angle. And based on radians, it's pi over 2 radians. Okay? Swing it around. Again, we're off the x-axis. Obviously, that's a straight line. So this is going to be our 180-degree line. What is the point here? Well, again, it's not up anywhere, so the point's going to be -1 now because it's over here, and 0. And what radian-wise? That's pi. Okay, come down here. This is going to be our 270 degrees. Okay, what is that radian-wise? That's going to be 3 pi over 2. Or radians, you'll learn tomorrow about radians and degrees when we get into that stuff. And what's that point at the bottom? Well, that point right there is going to be 0, -1. And again, as you swing around again, this is going to be 360 degrees as well. And that's going to be 2 pi radians, and so on and so forth. This is kind of what we looked at here. These are all the reference angles that we're going to talk about here. That's 30 degrees. That's 60 degrees. I'm sorry, that's 45 degrees. Okay. And that's going to be 60 degrees. And so on and so forth. So let's look at a couple of those. This first part here is 30 degrees. Okay, so if we look at 30 here, well, that makes this a right angle, and that's going to be 60 degrees up here. Okay, so we already know that our radius here is 1 because it's a unit circle. So if we set up our 30, 60, 90 degree triangle that we talked about the other day, it's going to be x, 2x, x radical 3. We know that the 1 is across from the 90. So across from the 30 is going to be 1/2, because again, divide by 2, x is 1/2. So then what's that end up? That's radical 3 over 2. So if we put that on the triangle, across from the 60 is radical 3 over 2. So this distance here is radical 3 over 2. So the distance on the x is radical 3 over 2. Across from the 30 is that 1/2, so this distance is 1/2, meaning my y-coordinate is 1/2. So that's where those coordinates come from. Now let's look at the 45 reference angle. Here's our 90 degree again. We have 45 and 45. We know this radius is 1. So it's 45 on both sides. So let's set up a chart. And this can be true for any reference angle that deals with these angles. So we have, I'm sorry, that should be 90. We've got x, x, x radical 2. And again, the 1's across from the 90, so put it there. Again, divide by radical 2. So x equals 1 over radical 2. We got to rationalize, so I got to multiply by radical 2 over radical 2, which gives me radical 2 over 2. Okay? Well, we know that that's going to be both of these because they're both x. So what does that mean? That means this coordinate here is going to be radical 2 over 2 and radical 2 over 2. And let's look at the 60 degree triangle. Okay, again, Here's 60 degrees now from the axis. There's 90, so that means our 30 is up here. Same thing. There's nothing new here. 90, get x, 2x, x radical 3. The 1 is across from there again. Again, that's a half. Again, that's going to be radical 3 over 2. All that changes is where it is. So now, across from the 30 is a half. So now my x is now 1/2. And my y now is radical 3 over 2. And that's where that sine, remember the cosine of theta is the same thing as your x, and the sine of theta is the same thing as your y. That's where I'm getting those numbers at that we were talking about yesterday. Now, how can you use the reflections to talk about this? Well, we talked about this 30 degree. Remember, this reference angle is going to be 30 degrees. Well, this angle over here, that's obviously not 30 if we're coming from this far here, but the reference angle from here to here is still 30 degrees. So that's still 30 degrees in that triangle. So our x and y are no different, but listen, look at this. It's in the second quadrant. So then my x is negative, my y is positive. Well, what happens if we reflect it over the x-axis here? Well, the x is going to stay negative, and then the y becomes negative. Okay, we can reflect it back over the y-axis, and then guess what? The radical 3 over 2 it goes back to positive, and that y stays negative. Same thing here. So now we have 45, radical 2 over 2. So again, how do you reflect it? Well, come here, and x becomes negative. Down here, x is negative, y is negative. Now we're in the fourth quadrant. X is positive, y is negative. No difference. Okay, so here's the unit circle in all its glory. So if you write down the stuff, again, there's 30, 45, 60, and then multiples, 120, 135, 150, and 180, 210, 225, and 240, then 270, and 300, 315, 330. So those are all the angles terminating with that x-axis there. And again, what are your angles that are coterminal with that and everything else of that nature that we're talking about? So copy that down. So using the unit circle becomes kind of intuitive. So your sine of theta of 315. So if you look at your unit circle that you copied down, the sine of theta, the sine of 315, which is the same thing as your y coordinate, will be negative radical 2 over 2.